on a glimpse at Hilbert space operator. So, if you have gone through the abstract, I have said many things there. Uh, Within a span of 1 hour, probably it's not possible to cover all those things. And also, one should, I wrote the glimpse part because it's like it's kind of one approach. Okay, there, and this is a very small part. There are plenty of other things you could do. So what I would be telling you, it's also kind of a active research area for past around say 60 years. Okay, and there are things which are way beyond that, but mostly the way I phrase it or the language comes around 1960s. Okay, okay. So I start with what I call the first thing I will start with finite dimensional Hilbert space. So all my Hilbert space are over C. Okay. So these are Cn and it comes with an inner product. Fine.
So the scheme can be enlarged, or this is the maximum size?
Okay. Actually, I am from iPad. I actually I don't whether really enlarge the screen. So let me check one second. I am actually unable to do
Okay.
enlarge the screen. Is it difficult to read?
So probably you can try the landscape mode, like while.
Yeah, that might be a little better because it's a little small for some people. Ah, this is better, of course.
This is better.
This is better. Okay, that's
Yes. Yes.
okay. So what I am saying is that we will be starting with the finite dimensional Hilbert space. And what do I mean by operator on it? These are matrices, and all of you are probably familiar with the uh, diagonalization technique. Okay. So what does diagonalization do? How it helps us? This is basically kind of a classification of operators on the Hilbert space. Okay. Now, what kind of operators? Not every operator could be diagonalized. Okay. And we know that if you take, say, n to be a normal operator, so by normal we mean n star is n star n. Okay. This so a thing could be diagonalized if and only if it is normal. Okay, and theory goes kind of thing that it says that if lambda is an eigenvalue of n, then it would imply lambda bar is an eigenvalue of n star, and you can say that kernel of n minus lambda is same as kernel of n star minus lambda. In fact, what you could show is that if you take this norm square, this is same as this thing. Okay, and these observations actually tell you that kernel of n minus lambda becomes a reducing subspace for n. Okay, what does that mean? Reducing. So you can write then your n is like a block diagonal where 0 appears here and a b. Like here the a, I can write n as lambda times identity, and here 0, here something else. Okay. And an induction argument will give you, because you are lowering down the dimension, so an induction argument will give you the diagonal. Okay, so these are kind of for us, these normal operators for us are kind of nice operators, because I know how to deal with them. So automatically, if I come to infinite dimensional Hilbert spaces, so here I am taking separable Hilbert space, so and infinite dimensional Hilbert spaces. The question is, I can still define normal operator by this thing. Okay, the question is that do these remain nice? Meaning, can I have such diagonalization here? Okay, if you go through a bit, you can see we can have a roadblock here. First of all, what are these lambda? So I need to ask what are eigenvalues here. Now the problem is that exactly eigenvalue there may not exist any eigenvalue. So how does I replace things with eigenvalue? So if you see, lambda is an eigenvalue in finite dimension. Lambda is an eigenvalue of n if and only if n minus lambda is not inverted. Okay, so of I would say in general a T operator I would write. So basically here this set of eigenvalues kind of things replace what I would call a spectrum. This is called spectrum, and how it is gets defined. All lambda belongs to C such that T minus lambda is not equal. Fine. So this is my spectrum, and all lambda such that you. So in finite dimension, these are basically eigenvalues. But in infinite dimension, this need not be an eigenvalue. Okay, I should have mentioned here Hilbert space from finite dimension to infinite dimension. It's just a difference, like you have the inner product and the norm given by the inner product, it makes it a non-linear space which is complete. Okay. Okay, so we have defined what is called spectrum. Now I would like to tell you one thing, that a normal, any operator need not have an eigenvalue. So since we were dealing with normal operators, let's see an example of a normal operator. So I am looking at L2 0 1, this space. What is this space? This is nothing but F0 1 to C. You can say this is measurable. If you know it, it's fine, don't worry much. I can integrate like this, you say, over 0 1, and this integral is 1. And this gives you this forms a Hilbert space. This you can see is nothing but a kind of a generalization what you have in Cn, this inner product. You can think of this thing as all functions from 1 to 2n to C. And the inner product, the standard inner product, if you see, often says it is x inner product y is summation xi yi bar. And if you take it in terms of f and g, this is nothing but summation I running from 1 to n fi gi bar. So what happens here is my domain is now a continuum 0 1. So what I will do, just I replace this inner product, the sum by the integral. So this is f g bar over 0. Fine. And with respect to this inner product, you can see this is a Hilbert space. Now I define an operator n which act like this, that n fx of x is x times f. You can show, so this is an exercise you can think of later on, that show that this n, so it's not this, n is not. Okay. And also, if lambda is an eigenvalue, then you know, then n f should be lambda times f, which would give you that x minus lambda times f is 0, and that it give you f is 0 almost everywhere. So that means f is 0 in L2. Fine. So that means there cannot exist an eigenvalue. But this is a theorem which says for any t which is a bounded operator on a Hilbert space, spectrum of t always non-empty compact subset. So it means the spectrum is there. There are elements lambda. In fact, here the spectrum you could see is the 0 1 interval itself, but no point in your spectrum is an eigenvalue. Okay, so some such thing can occur. However, it's almost likely that, like here, I can write a diagonalization. What is the diagonalization? So if you look at this, a diagonalization means your n would be looking like lambda 1 time this kind of thing. Okay, which in other words you can write as summation lambda k ek, where ek is projection on the eigenspace. Okay, so basically what actually comes out in infinite dimension, it says that this is called a spectral theorem. Okay, and it says any normal operator will look like integral lambda dE when you integrate over the spectrum. This is projection valued measure. Okay, and so basic thing is I would like to say here, what do we mean? So this is also is a resolution of identity. I would not go into this much, but I would like to say you how actually you get this. Okay, so basically this is same as, so this is a rephrasing this is same as saying nx inner product y is nothing but okay, and this exy gives you a complex measure. So the thing is, we have to find out where from you are getting this complex measure, and the steps are like this. Okay, so we will not be doing this. What we can do is that the sister algebra generated by n, you can think of it is all polynomials in n and n star. Okay, and then close with respect to the operator now. Okay, and you can say this is same as C of sigma n, and this isomorphism is given by Gelfand. So this is the first step, and now what you can do for f in C of sigma n, this is the step 2. So this is step 1, this is step 2. For f in C sigma of n, what you can do, you can map f to f of n xy for xy belongs. Okay, and then you can see this gives you a bounded linear function on C of sigma n, and then you use the Ries representation theorem to construct regular complex Borel meshes. Okay, and what you will have is that you can write this f and xy is integral f d mu xy, and from here actually the right hand side I can extend to L infinity, and that would enable me to construct this. Okay, and later on when I take f to be z, I will get this thing nxy will look like equivalent. And these d mu xy are basically this. So that's how you write exact a similar formulation like in finite dimension. So it remains again a nice operator in infinity. Now the problem is that almost apart from this normal operator, there are no.
Sir,
Yeah,
yeah, can I ask one question?
yes,
Uh,
sure.
so just go up a little. Yeah, fine, that's fine. So you just use the isomorphism between C star n and C of sigma n. This is the functional calculus, and then you started with the continuous functions on sigma n, and then at the last step, you extended that to the L infinity
Exactly.
functions, right? After you define the integral. But my point is, can you start with the L infinity functions in the first step? That when you define that this is a bounded linear functional, because L infinity sigma n is still a Banach space, you can do that. And can you then continue with the proof in a slightly other way? Is that possible?
See, there are things you can conclude other way. There are other proofs. This is not the one proof, but this is the most likely thing because somewhere I have to construct a measure. Okay,
Right,
and how do I get the measure which is associated to your operator?
right.
So the association comes from continuous function.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Means my
Because
point is
you
in
can
the
do
step two.
anything with L infinity, but the measure somehow has to relate with the normal operator, no?
Yes, yes.
So where is the link? That link is given by this continuous function.
Oh, because Rees representation theorem won't be still valid if you are going ahead starting with L
L
infinity
infinity.
functions. Yeah. There's an issue right there. Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Okay, so as Shatato said, what does mean by continuous functional calculus? An essential part is that given an f continuous function, you can write what is f of n. Okay, like I can write p for any polynomial, I can write what is p of n. I can uniquely define for continuous function on the spectrum what is f of n. And in fact, as L infinity thing says, I can define even for L infinity functions what is f of n. So that is called any L infinity function. Okay. In fact, you can show any normal operator is actually here is kind of equivalent to multiplication by phi on some L2 space for phi is in L. Okay, but I am not going into this thing. So what I am trying to say here now is that we have this normal operator. This is a nice operator, and for us, and anything beyond normal, the same scenario changes drastically. Meaning, there are no as such very satisfying kind of thing apart from normal like this. So various people try to adapt non-normal operators in various ways. So what in this talk I will be doing, I will be telling you one such approach. There are plenty of such approaches. People started studying sister algebras and stuff like that. Various type of operator theory also people have done. I am going to say or give you one such approach. Okay. So what is that approach? So this is usually known as dilation. Now what does dilation mean? So if you have an operator A on a Hilbert space H, Okay, and suppose I can have an operator K, a Hilbert space K containing H, and an operator B on K such that I can write B looks like A and then something here. Okay. So this is H part breaks like this. Okay. So in particular, I would say A is basically, if you compress, so pH is a projection from K to H, then this is nothing but pH B. Okay, so this is called, A is called compression of B and B is called dilation of. Now why I am suddenly defining dilation? So what people say, okay, we are not able to say anything beyond normal, but we know normal operators are nice operators. What if I can put my operator inside a nice operator? So what if the operator in concern inside nice operator? Okay, so that this nice operator, so what I mean by inside a nice operator, that is the nice operator becomes a dilation of given. Am I able to make my point clear? Okay, let us see. You see, I take a scalar in complex number with mod alpha less than 1. Okay, and I look at this thing. You see, in one part I have a alpha, so this is an operator from C2 to C2, and you can check this operator is basically a unitary. What is an unitary? It is a normal operator. We think that it becomes identity. And you have come across unitary operators because you know that in the classification, the diagonalization I have talked of about normal operators is unitary diagonalization. So you have come across this unitary operator. So what you are saying is your alpha is part of this unitary. Right? So my alpha to start with was an arbitrary thing less than 1 mod, which is less than 1. I can put it inside a nice, so-called nice operator. So if I have T, suppose, whose norm is less equal to 1, I can actually construct an operator which is T I minus T star to the power half I minus T star T to the power half minus T star. You can check, this gives you a unitary operator from here. Okay, so now the question is, what I will do with such unitary operators? How, what property of these unitary operators will have some, meaning will force some properties on the operator T. Okay, as we have noticed here, if you go above, it's like I said, this is the continuous functional calculus. It is one of the very basic steps. So you can define for each function fn. So a natural question could be, can I say such thing? Like suppose I say this is my operator u. So I know if I look at t, this is now if I look at t square, can I relate it to u square? Look at the example. I have said alpha equal to 0. So this is 0, 1, 1, 0. So alpha equal to 0 has this as your dilation. Okay, but alpha square is also 0. But when you do 0, 1, 1, 0 square, you have 1, 0, 0, 1. So it is no longer in this corner, you are not getting your operator back. It was here earlier. So it seems the basic question is not even I am not able to get out of this nice construction. Okay, so the question what I would like to say is that does there exist a Hilbert space K on H which contains H and a nice operator say N such that I will come to it, I am writing it very vaguely, such that T to the power N is same as H N to the power N for all N. Okay, and this actually same as saying P of T is PH P of N. This is the same as saying. Okay, you can play with this thing a bit more and can see you could have written, okay, I can put, so 2 by 2 things is not working for me. Instead I can take here 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. Will it work? I mean, so 0, 0, 1. And if you square this, if you do square of this, so 0 is sitting in the 1, 1 position. If you square this, you will see you will have 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. So square will also have this property that 0 sitting here. But when you do cube, you will see this is 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. So what I am trying to say, it is not that easy even to dilate 0 if I enforce this property. If I say that I need to have this property. In fact, you can see you cannot put this 0 inside any finite dimensional operator. You have to have an infinite dimensional operator. How does that infinite dimensional operator would look like? This would look like kind of a bilateral shape. So this is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 0 here. Only this kind of shape. So this is, I would say, on L2 of Z. Okay. So even with a small operator 0, if you say that this condition should be satisfied, you see you cannot do unless you go into infinite dimensional operators. Okay, and fine. So this is the thing. I just want to say you might be aware with another operator L2, which I can start with 0, 1 like this 0. So this is called a bilateral shift, and this is called unilateral shift. Okay, and how does this unilateral shift look like? This look like S of A0, A1. This will be 0, A0, A1. Okay. So in particular, Nas-Foyas and later, so Nas-Foyas and later Schaefer give these explicit construction. So this is sometimes called a Schaefer dilation. Initially, this was studied by Nas-Foyas. Later on, he gave this explicit construction, which says that you can any contraction T, okay, you can put it inside an operator, so it will look like this. Okay, and this is your T. And this is actually unitary, and you can say your T to the power n is nothing but PH u to the power n. Or sometimes people write it also PH u to the power n. Okay, and this happens for all. Fine. So you have a T, you can put it inside a nice operator that gives you a nice polynomial calculus, as of to say. Is this okay? Okay, and usually what you do, the steps, you just say the steps, you basically T dilates to isometry, and then isometry dilates to unitary. See, not every isometry is an unitary in infinite dimensional space. And here isometry, one could show this is related to the shift operator that I have said. And this unitary will be bilateral shift. Okay. So basically, you say T dilates to isometry. So this operator will look like T, dt, T dt star, what I have no, T dt 0, 0 like this, and here it will be identity. So this is the isometry. And then the operator I have written here, it will be unitary. Okay. So once I say that this is this result, a nice corollary follow, which was very well known as von Neumann's inequality. This plays very important role in actually studying a class of operators beyond these contractions. So we will see. First of all, let us see what is von Neumann inequality. It says if you do this norm of Pt, then this is less equal to the sup norm of P on D closure for all polynomial, one variable polynomial. Fine. And actually there are proofs, but it is people later on found various proofs, but a proof could easily be given by this dilation theory. Okay, and you notice that even for matrices it is difficult to prove this inequality, but as I have said that from matrices if you go to its dilation, that will be an infinite dimensional operator. But this is a finite dimensional inequality for matrices. Even that, to obtain, you need to take help of infinite dimensional operator. Later on, there were various proofs using finite dimensional that also actually uses the idea how the proof goes for the unitary dilation.
So
So
this
let
is
us
for
see
NET or only for contractions?
what.
This is for NET or only for contractions?
Yeah. This is I said no. Forgot to write. So what I say unitary dilation would imply that your P of T is nothing but PH P of U H. So non PT should be less equal to non PH U, and this is less equal to non PU. Okay. As you know, U is a normal operator, and so also the spectrum of PU, you can check, this is the spectral, this is known as the spectral mapping theorem. Which says this is P of, and then you can say that this norm is basically this, since this is a normal operator, this norm is the spectral radius. So what it is saying, this is actually norm of P infinity on spectrum. Now what is spectrum of U? U is a unitary operator. So its characterization is U is normal with spectrum of U is inside the circle. So that gives you, this is less equal to P infinity circle, but the maximum modulus principle tells you this is nothing but, and this gives you a proof of von Neumann's inequality. Fine. So as often it happens that once you have this thing, people started asking that how this unitary dilation and this von Neumann inequality is related to each other. You can see that norm T less equal to 1, I got norm PT less equal to this thing via von Neumann's inequality. Sorry, via unitary dilation. Okay, and norm PT is actually, so this way if we see, this is basically trivial, because if you take P to be Z, that will give you this. Okay, so the question is it saying us something more? Is it hinting us at something? So what is this declosure? How declosure is something that we would be interested in. Why we are suddenly for a contraction we are looking at declosure. So this declosure is actually, in this inequality it says spectral set for. Okay. So let me define first what is a spectral set. So K is a compact subset of C, is said to be a spectral set for T if spectrum of T is contained in K and norm F T is less equal to norm of F infinity over K for all F holomorphic neighborhood of. Okay, so what we have seen till now, that closed unit disk, it is a spectral set for contractions, and in fact it defines contraction, and such thing admits an unitary dilation. So people started asking, okay, fine, declosure is a very good set. What if your K compact set, instead of a declosure, it becomes something like this, or may become something like this? Yeah, it can still be contained in declosure, but if you don't look at this further structure, you might not be getting something more about the operator T. What was our idea? That I want to put it in a nicer operator, but not forgetting the structure. So suppose my compact sets are like this. What can I say about these operators? Can I say something much stronger, or maybe I would say maybe something which would help me a better way? Okay, so I would like to just comment one thing that I forgot here. I hope you are not confused with holomorphic in a neighborhood of K thing. Here, if you see, these things is simply connected. Okay, and once you have this simply connected domain, you can know this holomorphic function can uniformly be approximated by polynomials. So the way I have written this star is same as however, when you are looking at this set or this set, this is not true. But here you can say you can play the game with rational functions. So instead of looking at all holomorphic functions, you can look at rational functions, poles of K, and you can also look at RT. So this is the same inequality. If this happens, then it will happen for all L. Holomorphic in a neighborhood. Okay, so now I want to see what do I mean by nicer operator here. So in this case, if you see, I have unitary. So what is unitary? Unitary is a normal operator with spectrum inside circle, which is the boundary of your closed unit. Okay, so what I am expecting here, I am asking the question. So this is the right question would be here is that suppose T is bounded operator with spectral set K. Does there exist a normal operator N with spectrum of N inside the boundary of K such that, okay, here normal operator on K containing H and T act on H, okay, such that you can say F of T or you can say R of T as well, same as H of T. So here in this case you can say this is R of N. Okay. So this is the question, and if such normal operators exist, if such normal operator exists, then P is said to have normal direction. Okay. Sometimes this thing is also called rational dilation, as you can approximate by rational. Okay. So this is in particular in C. This comment I would explain you later. Okay. So naturally the question now becomes that whether an operator with a compact K as a spectral set always have a dilation. I know. So question is an operator T with A as spectral set always have dilation. Okay. It is Agler in around 80s, 1980s sometime, who showed if you take an annulus as spectral set, so it's probably at around 85. If you take annulus as spectral set, then the operator has dilation. Okay. And almost 20 years later, in 2005, Drischel and macula showed this is false if the connectivity, if it is, so if the connectivity is more than 2. So false if for false for triply connected. So annulus is doubly connected, this is triply connected. So if your thing is looks like this, then it is false. So there will exist an operator with this as its spectral set, but will not have a normal dilution. Okay. So it took quite a long, I must say, that people are still very amused with the fact that can we have a means both the proofs, particularly this proof is still tractable, but this one, as Agler said, many people usually do not understand. What I heard is that he said that he tried to do it, produce a counter example via computer. Okay, some calculations, and in order to produce a counter example, he finally able to prove. So his proofs are basically the computer proof, how the computer does the thing. So these he has taken the proofs from the lines of computer program, kind of what he said. Okay, so people actually do not understand this proof much, and many people still trying to make, including Drischel and Macula. So they later on have done something called test functions. One of the goal of those test functions is to study this rational dilation on annulus to give a more clarifying picture of this particular thing that happens in doubly connected domain but fails of domains of connectivity higher than 2. Okay, so I have it is 1 hour. Okay, but the thing is, what I have planned to do, I have only covered maybe very little. So can I have some more time or should I stop now? Hello.
I guess you can. I mean, I don't know. Whoever is supposed to comment, but you can try to maybe get to a nice theorem in the next 10 minutes or something. Maybe 5-10 minutes, and then stop there. I mean, will that work?
So meaning, yeah, so what I would like to then now ask these things in the basically once you have such thing, people started asking in the multivariable setup. So probably I would try to ask in multivariable setup, but that will again be kind of another story to start with, and so it will continue in some sense. So, okay, so let me finish maybe so 10 more minutes. What I would like to do, this is again a, so whatever I wanted to say about dilations in one variable, I am done. But the natural thing, like people usually do, is that what happens? The question is what happens when you take a tuple of operators. So basically, so my T is like T1, T2, Tn. Okay, so can I put this inside a nice tuple of N1, N2? So this is kind of a natural question that occurs. Okay. So first of all, I need to then exactly go from the what I mean by spectral set. So the spectral set here, I would like to say K a compact. Now I take a subset of Cn. Okay, and I would like to say spectrum of T contained in K. But this is a tuple. So what do I mean by spectrum of T? Okay. So basically, a short thing here is, I would say, this spectrum is known as Taylor spectrum. Okay, Taylor's joint spectrum. What is this Taylor joint spectrum? So I have now seen one variable thing in what is a spectrum. I need to say if I have a tuple of operator, what do I mean by spectrum? So I can check that if I look at 0 goes to H, goes to H, goes to 0, and I have a Tn operator, then if this sequence is exact, what does it mean? It means your Karn T is 0 and T is on. So by open mapping theorem, T is inverted. So what I am doing here, basically what I am saying, that if you look at this exact sequence now by not T by T minus lambda and look at the homology group, or you can say that it is exact at every point. So I would say lambda belongs to spectrum if and only if this sequence is exact. In fact, the homology group is trivial. So this then generalizes to the thing, if I have two operators, you can look at this sequence which says H map to T1H, T2H, and then FG map to T2F minus T1G. This is known as actually Koszul complex related. And again, I would say lambda belong to the spectrum of T if and only if the Koszul complex associated to T1 minus lambda 1, T2 minus lambda 2. So similarly for n variables, and actually there have been lot of analysis. So this is work of Joe Taylor, and many analyses were done on this spectrum, which shows that this is the spectrum, the analog of the spectrum that we have actually studied in one variable. And what do I mean by analog is that usually the spectral mapping theorem and other stuff that follows here as well. Okay, and various spectral analysis later on this thing were done by Vasilescu and Putin, two names. Okay. Okay, so I have defined what I mean by a spectrum. Fine. So now I know K is a I come back to the spectral set. K is a compact set, and I would say K is a spectral set for T if spectrum of T is contained in K and norm f T is less equal to norm f infinity K for all holomorphic functions, for all functions f holomorphic in a neighborhood of. Okay. So this is the same definition. I just changed my definition of spectrum, and the normal dilation is again the same thing. I will have f of t is ph, f of n restricted to h, where spectrum of n is contained. Sorry, boundary. So the question remains also the same, that whether for this couple of operators with k as spectral set, will it admit dilation? Okay. So the first thing what I would say, I would like to work with T1, T2 commuting tuple of contraction. So we were looking at only one contraction, now commuting tuple of contraction. Okay. And Ando showed that this inequality still remains true. So basically, this is the BIDIS. Okay, and BIDIS is the spectral set for commuting tuple of contraction. And Ando showed this is known as Ando's dilation. Ando showed that there exist commuting unitaries such that P, so f of T1, T2 is nothing but f of T1, T2. Okay. So it is very natural to ask, excellent. So I have again a thing in two variable, and exactly the same thing follows. So what happens is more than two variables, and it is Veroculus. Maybe the spelling is wrong. Veroculus showed that it is false beyond two variables. So he showed that there exists a polynomial. It's kind of, he showed it's a homogeneous polynomial of degree 2, and so in n variable. And P this where n is greater or equal to 3, such that norm of P T1 to Tn is actually strictly greater than norm. In fact, what we showed is that this is true. So the enclosure so this G is known as Gaussian constant. Okay, which is again important from various other graph theoretics perspective as well. And we showed that this Gaussian constant is known to be the supremum of summation ij1 to n. You take supremum over n aij xi y j. You take all xi yj's are in unit ball. So unit ball, okay, and aij's are such that summation aij lambda into j this mod is okay, and one can show that this G is actually strictly greater than. So that's how we proved this thing. Okay, now I probably please I am finishing. I will be probably saying some results and an open problem related to this. Okay, but this result was kind of an existential result. There exists such thing. So people started asking, what about having concrete operators? So Veropoulos again with Kaiser actually showed that there exist three 5 cross 5 matrix tuple. So 5 cross 5 matrix 3 tuple, and this again has two variable homogeneous polynomial where von Neumann inequality fails. And you know von Neumann inequality fails means the unitary dilation will not exist because unitary dilation implies von Neumann inequality. Since von Neumann inequality fails, unitary dilation will not exist. Okay, so the natural question here is that is it true in the dilation setup that suppose it has, so I have an example where von Neumann inequality fails. So it is natural to ask whether if von Neumann inequality holds, then is it true that dilation will always hold? And Parrot has given example, again 3 commuting contractions. Okay, where von Neumann inequality holds, but dilation does not. Okay, so these were earlier results, and then as it turns out that we are in 5 cross 5 thing, so people started asking, okay, so do we have this example in 4 cross 4? Okay, and Holbrook has given example of 3 4 cross 4 matrices satisfies von Neumann inequality, but again dilation. So the question comes out to now 3 by 3 and 2 by 2. So Holbrook himself said for 2 by 2 case, any n tuple will have satisfy von Neumann inequality and will have dilation. It is as late as 2012, Davidson and Choi came up with an example in 3x3 case. Okay, they showed 4 3x3 matrix satisfying von Neumann inequality, but dilation. And Nice, this is 2012, and Nice in 2015 proved that all tuple of 3x3 matrix satisfies von Neumann inequality. So that means it is still open the case if you take 3 tuple of 3x3 matrices. It satisfies von Neumann inequality, but open thing is whether dilation exists. There is no counter example as of yet. Okay, so I would stop here, but I just say that so this is one type of thing, one type of question. Now you might ask why people are interested in this. So in this dilation and stuff like that, this thing starts like this, that any T, if you take a contraction which is strict using this dilation, you can write T is nothing but S. So if you're looking at S and if you're looking at L2, this is S tensor identity on some infinite dimension Hilbert space, and invariant subspace, if you do like this is equivalent. So any T could be modeled on shift. Okay, I should have said that T star, okay, that would be clear, T star and any T, it could be modeled as a shift operator. Okay, and this follows from dilation. So that's how the things come, that any, and this L2 later on you can show this is same as Hardy space. Okay, so you can actually things start from there. It is not about dilation. So you can model your operator on a known Hilbert space and on a known operator, seemingly known operator. So the question automatically becomes, what do we know about these Hardy spaces and why particularly the Hardy spaces? Okay, I'll stop here.